John, you have a comment?
Yeah, these are one of my favorite verses because, like, if a Jewish person is hearing the testimony of an antinomian Christian, right, someone who's teaching against the Torah, if they're have any sense to them, they just got to read that and go, I don't have to listen to this guy. He's by definition of the Torah a false prophet, according to how they're describing the works of Messiah, and that he did away with the law, right?
That's how I'm seeing it.
And just one more, it's don't be surprised that you will be tested in this area, because he's telling you flat out, I'm going to test you. I'm going to send people your way to see if you get this. Whether you're going to defend and understand your covenant with me, the Torah.
Exactly. So if you've thrown away the instructions, are you really going to know? So, and if you notice, to go after other Elohim or other mighty ones, that could be referring both to, I believe, him, or another god or another deity, but Elohim are just mighty ones. So if you're following after other mighty type people that have a name and things like that, I think that flows right in there. We have a question in the back. So different ways, that's a different way prescribed that's not prescribed from him, from his commandments. Anything different from that? Yes.
Could these mighty ones also be what we know today as like superstars, super athletes, superheroes in these?
I don't see why they couldn't. The very definition of a mighty one, or a mighty one, that's where I think it comes into that as well. Because they're speaking and they have various ways, Yes, Chris?
I was going to say, I've had a conversation with Mark about this before. In our world, look at how they market people that say, oh, come, I can tell you the future, and they lay hands on you. So if you look at like soothsaying and people that claim to have an all-knowing sense, which is really what Elohim is in trueness and in nature, he doesn't need to lay hands on you to know you. He knows you by yourself. So even getting into those people who want to lay hands on you to tell you what is good and what is bad or what is foreseen in the future, stuff like that, I would see as a false prophet. Does that make sense?
Yes. No, but you know what? For us being religious folk or whatever, or people of the book, there's another thing that I think is interesting that we should look at. It's if this dreamer or the one who is a prophet is saying something, not only taking away, but he can be showing you wonder before you. All right? So even if a person's coming before you, showing you a great wonder before your eyes, it could be a great healing and stuff like that, or whatever it might be. But if they're saying to go after or down a different path rather than who we know have prescribed for us, then, then we have to evaluate that as well. So it's just not on some kind of big wonder in front of our eyes or some kind of sign. It has to be backed up again with something, which is the very written words of us to go up against that and to analyze that and subject that to that. Yes, John?
So back to the Messiah example. If you're saying, well, you've got to believe Jesus because he raised people from the dead. He did all these miraculous things. But if at the end of the day he's telling you in his teaching to do away with the Torah, that doesn't work. He would be by definition a false prophet. Yeah. I don't believe that's what the New Testament is saying, obviously, but for those who make that claim, it doesn't. The miracles really, to me, are almost like to get your attention. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, are you following the covenant? Are you in alignment with Yahweh?
No, and I agree with you. The miracles, they're kind of, if we look at it this way, are kind of worthless without him, the foundation, sticking on his very commandments. Because that was the key of what he talked about all the time. Okay, if you don't want to believe in me, believe in what I'm doing. Believing, because if you know my dad, as I know my dad, you can see that I'm doing everything that he had said. Right there, okay. And then on top of it, he heals somebody. Wow, now that's awesome, because that's straight from our Father. That's the amazing part about Messiah, you know. So you can see how the commandments are always the foundation for anything else, and it's there for us to check ourselves and check who's around us as well. It's coming down to you, Lisa.
Well, two things came to my mind because, I also have a Jewish perspective. But it's interesting because it's really only Yeshua. The hard part is it's really only Yeshua that gives us the balance for Torah. Do you see? Because in Judaism there's either, and I've been attending a shul, so but so there's either the really Orthodox, or the trouble is when they start to have some kind of freedom, which is good, which is right, they become very liberal, kind of liberal the other way. And the trouble is then, like in Christianity too, I mean, there's so much false teaching that Torah's done away. So really there's very few there's really not that many that actually attempt to practice. I think that Jews more than, they attempt to practice Torah and they mean well. But I think that the problem is you have to have Yeshua in the mix. And the trouble is, those that say they have Yeshua and they, don't believe in Torah, they really don't really know who Yeshua is, in a sense.
I would agree with you. But it's interesting, and what I do in my life, because I haven't been around in a synagogue and that maybe as much as you have, but what I do see is, we can always see fault on both sides, so to speak,
Right.
But I think it's right on what you're talking about, how Messiah is that one that's trying to bring all the brothers and sisters together. And it has to do with his Father's commandments of what he has said. So,
well, then you get frustrated. I feel frustrated right now, wondering how. Not that I have to know how he's going to do that.
I know, how is he going to do everything, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because you see those things and you think, boy, what's it going to take? That's what I think.
I don't know. And Lisa, I got to tell you, you're not the only one that's always pondering that. What's our Father doing? But he's revealing a little bit at a time, but he can only do that if we're steadfast with his commandments, And we are only to walk it out. He's doing everything else. So I'm glad you're here today, by the way. So you, and the whole idea too, he said, other Elohim that you have not known. So I think that's kind of interesting, or other gods. And, I know there's that idea, they had idols and, that God couldn't do anything because he was stone or brick or wood or whatever, that idea. So that brings us down to what's interesting, because you can't really know those things, but you can know. I think in Hebrew it's yada, to really intimately know. We can intimately know him, and it's through his commandments and it's through walking these things out. One of the precious things that he's given us was that voice that came and gave those very words to us, So think about that, things that you have not known. Meaning, let's look at it this way. Why don't you follow me, guys, because you can get to know me. You can really intimately know me. You can't do that with a tree or nature or science. You can know of it, and that's cool, but you can't really intimately know any of those other things that take place, because they're not. You can't, but him you can. Just like his son, you can intimately know our Father. Wow, no other God can proclaim such a thing, because they can't do it, but he can. So keep that in mind as well, too. And the rest of Deuteronomy 13 goes on. And the prophet or the dreamer of dreams is put to death, because he has spoken apostasy against Yahweh, your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Egypt and redeemed you from the house of bondage to make you stray from the way. These are all key words here, in which Yahweh, your Elohim, your Father, has commanded you to walk in. Thus you shall purge the evil, or that wickedness, from amongst you, from your midst. So, the whole idea is about straying from that way, and that way has been defined for us. And you notice the apostasy was there? Can anyone tell me what that word means? Because Mark's teaching last week was telling us what that word means. Well, let me give you a hint. There's teshuvah, which we know, right? To return to him. So this idea apostasy is just the opposite of that. What would that be?
Anti-teshuvah.
Anti-teshuvah. So apostasy, as Mark wonderfully showed us last Shabbat, the Hebrew behind that is actually turning the other way, or turning to something else rather than him. So that can be anything. Another set of standards, another set of covenants, another set of understanding, a new revelation, which he says, I've given you everything you need. So apostasy, in a sense, any prophet coming before you, you see the core of all this, might show you great wonders and whatever, but the core of it over and over again, he emphasizes here in Deuteronomy, it's about my commandments. Anything that's taking you away from what I've showed you, it doesn't matter what great wonder he might be doing or how great he might be speaking. He's not of me in that sense that you can see. And that's not to say that there isn't, I know there's probably plenty of healers out there in the Christian world or whatever. And my personal thing, I have no doubt. I cannot prove whether this person was healed or not. And actually, you know what? It doesn't matter in some sense. Okay? I know what he's given me. I know what I believe and what I'm going to follow after. That's where the strength is. Whether that is true or not, at the end of the day, if anyone's taking us away and saying the Torah's been done away with, or we don't have to do that, that should be a check in your spirit from the Father and saying, you know what? I know you might see that where you're at, but that's really, I'm going to trust in what he says, you know? And by doing so, maybe they're going to ask questions and they'll, you know, narrow their way a little bit more with you as well. Yes, Mark? Meshuvah? Meshuvah. So, and we want a teshuvah, not meshuvah. Okay?
That's Shugana.
So, and Barry has a question over here. And then you can also, while the mic's getting to Barry, Deuteronomy 18, 20 and 22, Jeremiah 28, 9, and Ezekiel 13 talk about the idea of recognizing false prophets and what they're coming forth. Because it's going to be words, you know, what they're saying, okay? Barry.
I was just going to say how amusing it is that Meshuva sounds like mess you up.
Mess you up. There you go. They will. They'll mess you up good. Yes, John.
I like back to the narrow way, the narrow path. It says if you stray from the way, right? Where did they come from? It says right above it, from bondage. Mm-hmm. By going outside of his way, that's where they ended up, I would argue.
I don't see why that wouldn't, because that's the whole idea. You're putting bondage. He has brought freedom. Right. All those commandments, but yet
the commandments bring liberty. That's the ironic part.
Yes, and I think that's because I guess it's nothing new even in our society. Anytime you hear about law or judgment, there's always negativeness that goes along with that, you know. But in reality, man, I'm glad we got laws because we got freedom because of those laws. You know, it's unjust laws in those that causes the issues. But to say that, you know, laws are bad, I don't want to live in a world that there's no structure or laws, you know, because that's where our freedom's at, you know. So here, an example, 1 Samuel 3. And Samuel grew and Yahweh was with him, and did not let any of his words fall to the ground. And all Israel from Dan to Beersheba knew that Samuel had been established as a prophet of Yahweh. And Yahweh continued to appear in Shiloh because Yahweh revealed himself to Samuel in Shiloh by the word of Yahweh. So it's interesting here. We take this prophet, Samuel was a prophet. And why? Because anything that Samuel said, his words, Yahweh was with him, his words did not fall to the ground. So the people would recognize, because Samuel's upholding certain things, let alone other works and things like that. But the core was he's doing what his father had set down. He was doing those commandments. The words fall to the ground came true, and because he did what was asked of him. He followed his father's commandments. He's followed Yahweh's commandments. John.
Oh, just interesting phraseology there, letting your words fall to the ground.
It is, isn't it? So that means none of his words fell to the ground. They were upheld. So we could gauge that Samuel was righteous because these things come to pass. And you notice the word appear, the word of Yahweh appeared, revealed, was seen. Who do we know as the word? You know? So something was manifested. I am not going to say anything more than that. So something was manifested, that the word of Yahweh was made manifest in some kind of appearance before Samuel. Yes, John.
Maybe we'll know when Shiloh comes.
Exactly. So Samuel, as a trustworthy prophet of Yahweh, and Yahweh adds to appear in Shiloh to Yahweh, because this is another translation, Yahweh exposes to Samuel as the word of Yahweh. That's kind of interesting how that's worded. So let's move on here. And we were talking about being aware of the false prophets. So when you can know them by their fruit. And then 21. Not everyone who says to me, Master, Master, shall enter into the reign of the heavens, but he who is doing the desire of my Father in the heavens. Many shall say to me in that day, Master, Master, have we not prophesied in your name and cast out demons in your name, done these great wonders, right? And done many mighty works in your name. And then I shall declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness, or the workers of Torahlessness, not doing my Torah, my instructions and my teachings. Here it's telling us that you notice here, the desire of the Father, who does the desire of my Father. He is telling us that the desire of his Father is. What is that desire? Messiah is clearly telling us it is the commandments from Sinai. Because what other Father is there? What other different desire would there be? Does our Father in heaven change, or is it the same desire that he gave to those people back then because he was, is, and will be? I'm confident in thinking that the Father's desire has not changed, and it won't change. So the last book of the Tanakh, or the last book of the Old Testament, leaves us this. And that's Malachi, my messenger. Okay? Because Messiah is speaking here. This is the last, the last prophet, so to speak, the last speaking for a long time. But this is what the Father has left us from that point before the Messiah. For look, the day shall come, burning like a furnace, and all the proud and every wrongdoer shall be stubble. Sounds no different what Messiah is talking about coming up, right? And the day that shall come shall burn them up, says Yahuwah of hosts, which leaves them neither root nor branch. That sounds like that tree that we were talking about earlier that's not bearing good fruit. But to you who hear my name, the Son of Righteousness shall arise with healing in his wings, and you shall go out and leap for joy like calves from the stall, and you shall trample the wrongdoers, for they shall be ashes under your soles of your feet on the day that I do this, says Yahuwah of hosts. Here it is. Remember, this is the last thing he told us. Remember the Torah of Moses, my servant, which I commanded him in Horeb on Mount Sinai for all Israel, the laws and the right rulings. This goes right back to what Messiah is talking about. Yes, Mark.
I was just going to say, back at verse 23, when it said, "Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness." If you look at the Greek word here, anomia, it means properly the condition of one without the law, either because of ignorance or because of violating it. And so you find this same word, lawlessness, when in 2 Thessalonians, when it's talking about the Antichrist when he comes, he is one who is lawless. And we don't want to be like him. If he is lawless, defined as anomia, without God's law, we certainly don't want to be in the same condition he is.
No, and I think that's great, Mark, because it's his laws. Because it doesn't matter this anti-person or whatever coming. He might have structure and laws, but they may not be coming from our Father, you know? Because we can see even our secular world, some of them match up to Scripture, right? I mean, I think we have the benefit of a country that has been based in biblical stuff, but not all the laws out there are from him, you know? So, yes, John.
Just on a comment on your book order here, this is the last book in the Old Testament,
Yes.
according to the English way of ordering them. What's the next book after this?
Matthew.
Matthew, the one we're reading.
The one we're reading. Some of them match up. So it's interesting, like John was pointing out. This is the last book of the parting words, so to speak. These are the parting words. You could say before that we could look for. One, and this has the understanding, the parting words for the one that we should be looking for. Okay, because remember, Moses left us with that idea that there is going to be one I'm going to raise up amongst you, amongst my brothers. That means this is a person that he's going to raise up amongst us. And I believe that to be the Messiah, Yeshua. So remember, bring to a memorial. So if we understand that, to remember is to make a memorial. Make a memorial to the Torah. Make a memorial to these commandments. So if we're making a memorial, an active, memorial, that means we got to continually walk this out, walk these commandments out, and learn some of the new ones. I'm learning more and more every day how to refine that narrow way that he's given me. So, as you see, no instructions. These are the right rulings. So whatever Messiah is talking about, these are the right rulings that was given to Moses and given to all Israel. Yes, John.
So what are examples of memorials? Would maybe doing the Passover every year be a memorial?
I know it is.
How about the Shabbat? Is that a memorial? Or
We're physically getting out and saying, this is the day that our Father has made for us to enter in. We can worship on any other day, but this day is specific for him, for us to rest and acknowledge that this is the sign between us, his people, and him. That's a huge. So it goes on. See, I am sending you Elijah, the prophet, before the coming of the great and awesome day of Yahuwah. The day of Yahuwah. And he shall turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the hearts of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with utter destruction. This is awesome. over the years, this is one of the ones where I had a bigger understanding that had come to me about this. Yes, I've over the years, and my dad's here, he can testify, I got back in the church, cleaned up some of my life, and we've gotten closer. But that's a teeny bit of what this is talking about. Because what this is talking about, the hearts of the children to the fathers. Who are the children and who are the fathers? The children is all of us, and the fathers are who? The patriarchs. And aren't we not returning to the heart of our father Abraham? Because he was doing these things, the heart of Isaac, Jacob. We're going back there. We've turned back. We're saying no to some of the things we've done, and now we're upholding Shabbat. We're seeing that is the turning back. That is the ministry of Elijah. Yes, Johnny.
So the Messiah says in chapter 5 of Matthew, think not that I've come to change one jot or tittle, or the heavens and the earth would pass away. Well, isn't that I will smite the earth with utter destruction? Doesn't that taken to an extreme? That's what would happen. So it's the Torah that's holding it all together. Is that a fair?
Yes, it is. And it's amazing. So Elijah will restore all things. That's in Matthew 17:11, and it reads this way. And Yeshua answered, said to them, Elijah is indeed coming first. I lost my arrow. So he is indeed coming first, but if I say to you that Elijah has already come, and they do not believe. So he was referring to John the Baptist, okay? But let's look at it this way. Messiah's talking to Elijah, that ministry of restoration. John the Baptist, he proclaimed that same thing. So let's take Messiah. He's proclaiming the same thing, but he's actually maybe showing us a little bit of better plan on how that restoration is going to look. Because we didn't hear much from John, but Messiah's words are recorded. And Messiah has that same ministry, the same idea of that. But he's going so far as giving us that direction, showing us how to restore ourselves back to the Father, back to him.
I was thinking of that verse too, where Yeshua says, when I return, will I find faith on the earth? Because to me, it seems to relate, in my mind, it was relating sort of to Malachi, where he said, he'll smite the earth with, lest I come and smite the earth with other destruction. Because the faith Yeshua is looking for is, when he returns, is, those that follow Torah, keep his testimonies and follow him.
Yes. So it's amazing what she just said. That's the narrow. Nothing has changed, and we can't allow that. We can't allow anything other than that. That be our call, and that be our walk in life. Barry, I got to do something real quick.
You ever
Go
felt
ahead.
like you had something important in your hand, but it just wasn't the right moment? Now's the right moment. Chapters 1, 2, and 3 of Galatians, Paul is talking to I'm going to move us away just for a moment to show just how correct you actually are. Because Galatians chapter 1, 2, and 3, he's talking to the Galatians that have gotten very religious. They have gotten to where they are following the law religiously as opposed to following the law to get closer to God, to know who God is, and to do what is right, and trust in the Messiah. It took me a good read through Galatians to understand he wasn't saying Messiah is it, that's all there is to it, you don't follow the law. After reading carefully, I realized he was saying that they had forgotten to trust in Messiah for their salvation, that he died as a criminal to forgive our sins, but it wasn't to say throw aside the law. It was trust in Messiah for salvation. The law is there to show how to walk it out.
Yes.
I wanted to bring that in because this fit your moment. I could see someone walk into Galatians and easily saying, "Oh, we're wrong.
Yeah.
The law isn't important, but that's not what it said at all.
Yeah. Thank you, Barry. So we're getting close here, but Acts 3 also, it talks about, I won't read it, but Yeshua answered and said to them, Elijah is indeed coming first and shall restore all things. You can find that in Acts 3 as well, that comment. So, therefore, anyone who hears these words of mine and does them shall be like a wise man who builds his house on the rock. And the rain came down, and the floods came down, and the wind blew and beat on the house, and it did not fall, for it was founded on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them, like a foolish man will build his house on the sand. And when the rain came down and the floods came and the winds blew, they beat on the house and it fell, and great was its fall. So I do want to finish up here. Give me a couple more minutes here. So here Messiah is finishing out. Okay, so therefore whoever does not build on his house on rock. But that's not the way it's worded. At least I see it's on the rock. It's a little bit different. So most of the parable is self-explanatory, but remember the flood. We had the sand and Adam, and it's talking. We saw the Noah, that whole picture there as well, and great was the fall. So he's kind of in the background bringing that idea back up. So the narrow way we've been told. So it's the rock that we hang on to. So the first place that the rock appears is a noun, and it's in Exodus 17:6. Here I am standing before you on the rock in Horeb, and you shall smite the rock, and it shall come out, and the people shall drink. That's the first place that this rock or the rock pops up. Okay? The verb has the idea of pressing upon or compress. The word is used as in overthrowing a city as well. To press in on a city, to overthrow it. But the noun is what we are focused on here. And Deuteronomy 32. Give ear, O heavens, and let me speak, and hear, O earth, the words of my mouth. Let my instructions fall like rain. Instructions fall like rain. My speech drop down as dew, as fine rain, and the tender plants, and as showers on the grass. For I proclaim the name of Yahweh, ascribe greatness to our Elohim. Here it is, the rock. His work is perfect. So this rock that you're supposed to be building on is him.
Cue up the rain.
And here comes the rain. And the rock is perfect, for all his ways are right ruling, and L of truth, and without unrighteousness. Righteous and straight is he. A twisted and crooked generation has corrupted himself. Their blemish, they are not of his children. So this whole concept is the rock is him. And that's an old concept. Messiah is not using a new concept. And you notice right here in Deuteronomy, right before it's talking about this rock here, the second time, it says give ear and hear. So it's like putting on the Shema right here. Hear and do what I've just said. It's the rock. And I might add, if you go back and read chapter 32, rock is mentioned. I'd call it the rock chapter.
Yes.
Because the rock
What is
goes
the word?
to Zur.
Hatsur, the rock.
The rock. It's mentioned over and over again. So read 32. That's the rock chapter of Deuteronomy. Okay? And I could read on and go on. We're on time. But various things that it points out. It talked about Yeshurun, the upright one, being straight. For he forsook who made him, and scorned the rock of his deliverance. So the rock is associated with deliverance. That sounds like the Torah. That sounds like our Messiah. You rejected the rock who brought you forth and forgot the El who fathered you. So this rock is a father. He's your foundation. Then it goes on, For their rock is not like our rock, even our enemies are judges. And it starts talking about not following the right one and seeing that, you know what, we have a rock. He is steadfast and he's our rock, not like anyone else is going to hang on to. He's not going to be the same rock. So the rock of deliverance associated again with salvation. Verse 39 is among these words, which I think is kind of interesting. When it's talking about seeking the refuge of the rock. Then it goes on, see now that I am Yahweh, I am He, and there is no Elohim besides me. I put to death and I make alive. I wound and I heal. And from my hand no one delivers. That is in the midst of talking about the rock that we need to hang on to. Then it goes on. The rock does not change. 42, and he said to them, set your heart on all these words which I warn you today, so that you command your children to guard them, all the words of this Torah, for it is not a worthless word for you, because it is life. And by this word you prolong your days on the soil which you pass over and then you inherit. And this is Joshua talking about it. So what's so interesting about that, why I have this verse here, the next time that after Deuteronomy the word rock pops up, this pops up right here when Joshua is circumcising the children of Israel before they go into the land. Why is that important? It's that rock that is a symbol of that commandment before they go into the land. And remember, Yeshua or Joshua shares the same name as our Redeemer, Yahushua. So let's look at it this way as it would come. It's this rock that circumcises in our heart, so we can enter into that land. So that means the Torah is what's going to circumcise our heart, so we can enter in the land just like Joshua, just like our Messiah, Yahushua, our King's going to take us to that promised land. So keep that in mind. And so Joshua made lives for himself, and that hill was called the hill of foreskin. So, and it came to be when Yeshua had ended these words that the people were astonished at his teaching, for he was teaching them as one possessing authority and not as the scribes. You think most of that, let's take the figure of how we understand Messiah and put it off to the side. Picture him like they were saying, they don't know who this guy is, but why would they think that he had authority? I'm not doubting that the Father didn't put authority on him, but where did that authority come? From talking the words and sticking to the words that was given him. There's the authority, and guess what? All of us can have that same authority. So, and it's so interesting, it ended these words. Well, that goes back to, I know I got to finish up here, but that very phrase goes back to other places in the Tanakh where the set-apart spirit will lead you to do what I spoke Moses. And then when Moses finished these words, so Messiah is following right along. So I just wanted to finish up there. Next week we will, please go ahead and read chapter 8. Read it ahead. And shalom and thank you. And let me close in prayer. Or John, do you have a closing comment?
Nope. Thank you. Thank you, Ralphie.
All right. Father Yahweh, we give you the great thanks. Thank you for all that you do. Thanks you for giving us this time in the rain that we hear coming down. Thank you again. Amen. And those online, sorry I went over, but we'll be right back in about 20 minutes. Thank you for your time, everyone.